the campaign works. Yeah, we'll do some questions at the end. And just to say, it'll probably be about an hour, although it depends on how many questions people ask, but we're expecting it to be around about an hour. Okay.
Great, thank you very much, Catherine. Sorry. Yeah. And we've just have a little bit of housekeeping. As we'd already said, it's great you've put yourselves on mute because everybody's used to Zoom by now, aren't you? If you want to put your hand up and ask something, please do, either electronically or like this. And we are going to record the session. We'd love to see you. We'd love you to be here if you want to be here, but we'll recognise data protection that if you don't want to be seen, that's absolutely fine. Catherine will warn you when we start to recording. So if you don't want to be recorded, please just let yourself be a blank or blank screen. And we'll have plenty of time for your Q&A after the talk, but put questions in the chat. Okay. So I'm going to talk for 20 minutes or so between us. So shall we have the slides? Did you have a question, Charles? Oh no, you're just holding something up. Okay.
So
all right.
I'm going to start the recording now. That's
okay.
All right with everybody. I'll start the recording and then I will share my screen.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We've got a PowerPoint.
Recording in progress.
Ooh.
That's wonderful, and we'll have the slides up in a minute. It takes a minute or two for them to come up, and we'll screen share them, and I'll talk you through the first. So I don't need to say this. I know everybody here knows the absolute utter seriousness of the climate crisis that we're in. As people probably know, I don't know how much people do and don't know about Animal Rebellion itself, but we primarily focus on emissions from animals and animal agriculture as our main driver of how we are helping to cause and create a plant-based future. This council campaign, it was, I'm sure we all know as well that it's very likely we'll fail to keep within the 1.5 Paris Accord if we don't change what we do with food, and we will struggle to keep within 2 degrees warming. I'm sure everybody's seen the code red. You know, we all kind of know the background. As we all know as well, because of XR, in 2019, Parliament declared a climate emergency, and 74% of councils across the UK have now declared climate emergencies. They're the ones we're working with. And what's often happening with the ones we're working with is that they'll look targets for energy or whatever in their climate action plans, which we ask you to have a look at on the council websites, but they often omit to look at emissions from food, because it's kind of, as I'm sure everybody knows here, the meat lobby is very, very powerful in a similar way that the tobacco industry was very, very powerful. So our first slide says UK city councils ban meat at its events as fight against climate crisis. Enfield was the first council to take this action. Nearly 70% of councils have declared emergencies, as I just said. Lewisham Council voted in favour of offering only vegan food at council events, and Leeds City has pledged to offer more vegan meals and have 2 meat-free days a week in 182 schools. When one of our colleagues did a presentation in Hackney, this particular person was a teaching assistant to the children in primary school. They wanted plant-based every single day. They can't legally. We'll talk about that later, sadly. Okay, so basically what we're campaigning for in this is to have schools to provide the maximum amount of plant-based meals within the current legislation. The current legislation is very outdated. It needs updating. Caroline Lucas from Brighton, where I live and campaign, is pressurising about this. I'm sure you all know about the CE bill and the Environment Bill. It was supposed to be reviewed, the school standards. It kept getting delayed, and there's lots of other fantastic other organisations who are also lobbying for changes to update it to have more vegetarian and vegan food. So we're campaigning for councils within the current legislation to have we can only have 2 vegetarian days a week. Sadly, it's only vegetarian because the legislation says that councils need to have dairy every day. I know we'll all think very differently. I know, I can see people. I mean, you might have lots of really interesting ideas yourselves about how to kind of get around that legality, but I'm sure you also know that schools very much stick within all of the legal guidelines and what have you. So there's only room for 2 days at the moment, but we're trying to promote more. Where I live in Brighton, just because this guy was is really committed. One of the principals here in the sixth form has banned all red meat. He hasn't banned white meat yet, but he's banned red meat. So slide 2. Okay, so this campaign was started by a couple of people during lockdown in December last year, because it was thought by those people that it would be, and it's a really good idea to do something during lockdown that you can do from your computer. That's the beauty of this campaign. And a lot of the work is sending emails, you know, checking websites, etc. It's quite a bit of admin. This is why it's good. Catherine will talk about how to actually do it, but it's actually good if you can have other people to work with. Catherine and myself offer ourselves in the nicest possible way to have online chats with you if you want to. I've had a, you know, sometimes one little Jitsi chat with someone online if they feel like they'd like just to have a chat about how to go about it, or they haven't found anybody to support, because getting some support is really important. The opportunity is huge, symbolic win, you know, and it's very achievable. We've got it in Hackney, we've got it in Brighton, it's happening in Brighton. Just 1 or 2 successes could ignite a wave. And as we know, 74% of councils have declared a climate emergency. Currently, we've got 48 groups working on this right now. And hopefully by the end of this evening, we'll have a lot more other groups from other places, which will be fabulous. There's a president. Pro-Veg have already had some success, and councils are doing it by themselves too. And you've probably all have heard of Meat Free Monday by who are also doing similar. Viva are doing similar, I'm sure, as Alex in fact mentioned earlier, they're doing similar. So slide 3, please. Thank you. So, you know, people thought long and hard about this, as one does. And as we all know, unfortunately, meat and dairy are kind of part of a lot of cultural heritage. They're considered to be a normal, natural thing for people. It's kind of part of lots of different aspects of our culture. And it's something that people, you know, pretty much everybody has opinions on, because everybody eats food every day. But school food has been particularly known to be lacking in fruits and vegetables, lacking in really good all those minerals that you get from fruits and vegetables, as I'm sure everybody knows about Jamie Oliver's campaign. Now, there's 585 million school meals served each year. So there's a potential massive material impact positively for animals and for the planet. So also with the school food, what we thought, or the people who designed this campaign thought, was, you know, when you're doing education, you're not just talking syllabus, you're actually talking about educating children in terms of for the next generation to be compassionate and conscious of the way that they eat and live. And we feel that is quite winnable, and that there's likely to be a domino effect. And I don't know how much contact people hadn't had in councils, but I've done quite a lot of bits with councils in the past, and you know, the more that councils do it, the more that councils do it, the more that councils do it. Okay, so thanks, Catherine. So, and this was just some research done in 27th of January 2021. As you can see on the slide, 86% of young people in the UK believe climate change is a global emergency. Of the people that said climate change is a global emergency, 59% said we should do more, should do everything necessary and urgently. 43% of the UK believe we should promote plant-based diets to tackle the climate crisis. Now, as you know, this will be old data now. We haven't got any new data as yet, but I'd imagine, given that Code Red happened last week, we've just had the rebellion. We've I don't know how we're getting together much more with XR. XR are very much embracing animal rebellion as sisters. We always were sisters, but it's kind of got closer, which is brilliant. So that's kind of just some important information that we use or can use. So slide 5 has our demanding. This, by the way, we're using it, we're calling ourselves when we do this food for the future, rather than our rebellion, because as I'm sure people know who've been activists, etc., sometimes it can bring, you know, just one word can bring in sort of lots of meaning, etc. You know, animal activists, etc. That's why we're just doing it as ordinary citizens in an area. 3 demands: serve as much plant-based meals in schools, excuse me, as is legally possible. Make a declaration asking for national legislation to be changed. That's happened in Brighton. It's happened in other councils. Is there lobbying government to change the national legislation to become more plant-based? And an easy one for councils to do, especially because there aren't lots of events, but there probably are some coming through now. Just serve plant-based meals only at council events. That's quite a quick, easy win. Okay, so slide 6, please. So we've got several other fantastic professionals that we're working with. Plant-based Health Professionals UK do presentations that, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, but my understanding is they've been doing really good work, as well as doing research. They're doing really good work at pressurizing hospitals to have more plant-based foods there. That's right, isn't it, Catherine? I haven't got that wrong. Do you know about that?
I don't know about that, actually.
Okay, well, I'm sure I heard it when I went to a talk of theirs. On the talk front, Dr. Shireen Kassam, who is from Plant-Based Health Professionals, is doing a talk this weekend. It's in our chat, in our Telegram chat, on plant-based health professionals. So you might want, that might be something that you want to go and join. We're working very, very closely with ProVeg. We have a very good relationship with Colette from ProVeg, who are, their idea is to get 40–50%. I'm now forgetting, Catherine. It's 40 or 50% plant-based meals in the world. This is ridiculous. I've forgotten.
50% reduction in the consumption of animal products by 2040.
Yeah. And they really know what they're doing, and they're very professional, and they'll go and help school to slightly rejig menus just to make them basically plant-based. They're fantastically supportive and helpful. And Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion are now working very much hand in hand. I personally gave a presentation to Brighton Animal Rebellion, Extinction Rebellion, and everybody was really, really keen, which is fantastic. Okay. So we're all working together. So slide 7, please. So this is kind of what we're calling ourselves. We've got a professional website. These slides will come with the email, which you'll get afterwards. There'll be a lot of information that we will send you. We hope it's helpful, but we're not using the name of Animal Rebellion, as I said already, may have negative or unhelpful connotations to councillors or policymakers. We present ourselves as local residents, just part of a group of Feed Our Future, and you can send this website, and it's very professionally done, to them in your initial emails if you would like to. We've developed a website and social media to support it, and the links are there. So I think that's probably all to say on that. And then finally, before my colleague Catherine takes over, we've just to say we've had some wins already. Hackney Council won Vegetarian a Day. That's roughly 31,000 pupils with a view to increasing to 2. Hackney's now working with ProVeg to implement this. My own council, Brighton and Hove, are starting 1 Vegetarian Day a week from October. And I'm going to be talking to the education officer for the area and the catering manager of the area, Caterlink. I'm going to let them settle down a bit in school, because of course it's all quite hard work for people at the moment. So, you know, I'm going to leave it sort of another week before I start contacting them, but about increasing to 2 days in the future. Catherine's working with Somerset County Council, who are working closely with ProVeg. I don't know if you want to sort of say more about that, because that's actually going over to you, my love. Do you want to say anything about your campaign? Because it's fantastic down there. Catherine?
Sorry, just trying to unmute there. Thanks, Alison.
Anybody
Yeah,
got any
so-
questions? Sorry.
If we do questions at the end, is that all right?
Yep,
If you've got
yep.
any burning questions now, then drop them in the chat so you don't forget them. Cool, thanks, Alison. So I will give you a little bit more information about how we actually approach this campaign. So in a nutshell, how we're going to do it, we basically are trying to engage councillors and decision makers with our proposals and the relevant facts. The aim is to win councillors over so that they decide themselves what is best to do. If the ideas actually come from them, it's even more effective. So they're hopefully deciding what's best for the planet, for animals, and for the children. And then when we get positive responses from the councillors, particularly those with the most decision-making power in the council, we introduce them to ProVeg. And Colette, who Alison mentioned that we work quite closely with in ProVeg, she will take over from there. Okay, so this slide is a screenshot from a booklet that we produced to help people run this campaign. You'll get the link to this booklet in the follow-up email. This is a suggested plan of action for how to proceed with the campaign. You don't have to follow this order at all, but it's just a suggestion, but it's worked quite well for most of us. So we've got 4 stages: connect with other campaigners, get local support, research the councillors, and then contact the councillors. So we'll look at each of those in a bit more detail now. So connecting with national support workers, as Alison mentioned, we've got people running this campaign in over 40 local authority areas across the UK. We've got a chat on Telegram to connect groups together, allowing people to kind of gain support and offer support to each other. It's really important that we kind of harness the power of the collective by staying connected and sharing what's working in different areas. We'll put the link to the Telegram group in the chat now, if you can do that, Alison, at some point, so that you get it even before you get the follow-up email. You can join that Telegram chat. So if you don't have Telegram, it might be worth installing. You can use it on your mobile phones and on a PC. It's basically a messaging app that is used by a lot of campaign groups. So as well as getting support from people in the Telegram chat, anyone who'd like a bit more support, like Alison said, can reach out and we can do one-on-one Zoom calls or phone calls. And there's also an email address that you can contact if you need a bit of help: councilcampaign@animalrebellion.org. And we also tend to have check-ins on Zoom once a month for campaigners, just to sort of an informal space where people can just give an update on what's going on and where they're at in their campaign. So getting local support in your area, I guess that can mean 2 things. That can mean finding people to run the campaign with and spreading the word and making your campaign kind of known or publicised in your local area. So while it's definitely possible to do this campaign by yourself, and I've been mostly doing it by myself, and as has Alison, it's definitely recommended. It's easier to sustain it and keep motivated if you can find a small group of people to work on this together. So like friends, family, your local XR group, local vegan groups, climate action groups, parents, teachers, anybody who might have an interest in that is worth tapping into. Get a little group together. And then it's also maybe a good idea to publicise your campaign in your local area. One of the easiest ways to do this is to set up a Facebook group or a Twitter account for your campaign and use this to connect with like-minded people or businesses in your area. Totally optional. This is definitely not something you have to do, but it can be really effective and a really fun way to build local support. So local vegan restaurants, cafes, caterers, they are a really fantastic source of support. If you don't use social media, you can always email them, but social media does tend to get like a better response. If you are able to connect with a supportive business owner, you might find that they want to know like how they can help you. One of the most useful things they can do is to publicise your campaign. So if you do decide to create a Facebook group, they may be willing to invite all of their contacts to your page, which means that you basically instantly have hundreds of people who know about your campaign, which could be really useful if you decide to start a petition or something like that. We have social media accounts, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if you do start a local account, then you can always just repost content from our Feed Our Future social media just to make it easy. There are loads of other things you can do to get local support, all of them, of course, optional. You can give talks in local schools. We've got a leaflet that you can print off and do outreach, write letters or articles for local press, contact your radio station, contact any local celebrities, anything you can think of, just to get more people knowing about what we're trying to do. Researching the councillors. Now, the decision in the council will ultimately be made by one or two people. Most likely that's going to be the portfolio holder for education, children and families, and also the portfolio holder for climate change. However, in order to build support across the council, we do contact all the councillors first. Now, this researching stage doesn't need to take that long. In just an hour or so, you can find all of the main information that you need. Look at the council website and compile a list of all local councillors. Depending on the kind of council area you are in, there will probably be between 40 and 70 councillors. We've got a leaflet which we'll send you the link to, which has got more information on the types of council and the types of committees within councils. So a list of councillors will easily be available on the council website. Note down any special roles that the councillors have, so those that are on committees, those that are part of the cabinet. You may find it helpful to create just a really simple spreadsheet for this to help keep track of who is who and who you've emailed and who's replied. At this stage, you can also try to find out how your local council works in terms of school meals, so how meals are organised. We didn't know this when we started the campaign, but school meals seem to be supplied in 3 different ways. So they are either in-house, where the council has full control over school meals, so it manages them and it supplies them itself, or they are outsourced to 1 or 2 large catering companies, or they are operated under small local contracts, which the schools themselves control and the council is actually unable to influence. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute and how it affects what you can do. At this stage, so if you're able to find out that information, that's great, but it's not always that easy. You might also be able to get hold of contact details for useful people who might be relevant. So for example, the head of traded services, the catering manager, if there is one, the head of education support services, anybody who seems relevant. All councils do seem to have different roles and it can be a bit of a maze. So yeah, don't spend too long researching, but a little bit does help. And then you want to move on to the most important stage of all, which is to contact the councillors. So write your email and send it to all local councillors to gauge their interest and support for the campaign. We've got a couple of template emails you can use, and they will be in the follow-up email. I'd recommend adapting that template to fit your area. So at a very minimum, you need to change the name so that you're addressing each councillor directly, otherwise it's going to come across as spam. If you can have a quick look at the climate strategy that your council has probably published, that's great, and maybe reference the climate strategy in your email. The main messaging of this campaign is on the climate, so we can hold councils to account on this, like on the climate issue after they've declared climate emergencies. However, it could also be worth mentioning the arguments of health or cost savings within that first letter. If you don't get a reply within a week, don't panic, just send like a brief follow-up email. Unfortunately, you can probably expect that most councillors won't reply, at least to the first email. They are very busy people. They don't really get paid for what they do. They probably get letters asking them to support all kinds of things. But you should get a reply from councillors who hold the main portfolios, so for climate and education. After you've sent a polite reminder, you can maybe expect a reply rate of somewhere between 10 and 50% is what we've been experiencing. But you do only need a few councillors, even just 1 or 2 councillors that are interested in this to really move things forward. One of the most useful things that councillors who are on board can do is forward your email to the key decision makers. So if a councillor is enthusiastic or interested to learn more, ask to have a quick phone call or video call with them if you're happy to do that. We've got a short PowerPoint that you can use in meetings with councillors if you would like to. You can also perhaps ask Colette to join you on that call, or one of us, Alison or I would also be happy to do that if you like. If you manage to get a call with maybe the councillors for climate change and for education within your council, and if they agree to what you're asking, then drop us an email. We'll put them in touch with Colette at ProVeg. She will take over and she'll support the council to help them make the changes. But it's not usually quite as simple as that. Councillors may be interested to learn more about what ProVeg can offer, in which case setting up a meeting with Colette is also a really good option. One of the most useful things, one of the most effective things you can do perhaps is asking a question at a council meeting. So I would suggest on the council website, just keeping an eye on when the upcoming council meetings are. The full council meetings perhaps only happen once every 2 or 3 months. And it's probably the full council meeting that you are going to want to attend. But I would advise doing this after you've already written to all the councillors and you've got all the responses that you think you're going to get. So all councils work differently, but you do usually have to submit your question a week in advance, and then you generally get about 3 minutes during the meeting to speak to your question. You'll generally get a verbal response in the meeting, and then a full written response should be sent to you as a follow-up. This worked really, really effectively for me in Somerset. I'd been writing to councillors for several months, but then speaking at the meeting was what actually seemed to bring the change. So I do recommend doing that. Going back to what I said earlier about the different ways that councils tend to organise the school meals. So if your council has full control over school meals, so if they are in-house, this can be a really easy win. If the council agrees that more plant-based meals are a good idea, they can literally just change it just like that. And that's how Leeds was so successful, because all of their catering is in-house. We're trying at the moment to identify which these councils are, because we want to make sure we've got strong campaigns running in those areas. I think at the moment I've managed to figure out that it's not easy to get this information, but I think Newcastle, Nottingham, and maybe Stoke-on-Trent have in-house catering. So if you know anybody who is in those areas, we'd be really keen to get campaigns going there. If the catering is outsourced, you will need to find out who the catering companies are and what the contract dates are. So that takes a little bit of investigative work. If meals are operated under small local contracts that are arranged individually by each school, like they are in Somerset, then you need to approach it slightly differently. Contacting schools directly to discuss their school meals has not proved very successful. They just generally don't reply unless you have a connection with the school. So if you're a parent or a teacher at the school, then it'll probably work. But what you can do in this situation is continue to push the council, asking them to influence schools. They've declared a climate emergency. It is on them to make sure that change happens. So don't accept councillors telling you that they can't do anything. I'd recommend politely asking the council what it can do rather than what it can't. We can hold them to account on the climate emergency and ask them to continue to act. So they can do things like writing to schools, asking the schools to push for more plant-based options on their menu. They can invite ProVeg to give presentations in council-run conferences for schools. They can promote climate-friendly eating on their website for schools. They can promote ProVeg's services on the council education websites. Loads of things the council can do if they say they can't do anything. Okay, so I've been talking for a long time there. I hope some of that was useful. I think we're going to move to breakout rooms now. Oops. And basically we've got 2 questions for you. So what excites you about this plan? And what are you curious about? I'm just going to stop sharing a minute. See if I can do the breakout rooms. Sorry, I haven't been able to keep an eye on the chat, but Alison, if there's anything really pressing, let me know. Are you on the breakout rooms, Alison, or shall I do it?
Oh, right. I was just saying we're all right in the chat at the moment. Yes, definitely agree, Charlotte. We need to have a new norm. There's Charlotte.
How many people are we? Can anybody tell me? 20.
16.
So what's
20 now? Wow, brilliant. So groups of 4, maybe 4 or 5. Are you doing the breakout rooms, darling, or do you want me to?
I'm doing it.
Okay.
And Alison, it's probably going to assign you and I to a room, but if we just don't go, then it might be easier than me trying to not assign us. Okay, here we go.
We thought in the nicest possible way we won't go, just so that you can tap them on yourselves.
You're talking too much.
And then come back and see us.
Okay, so rooms are ready. I'd say 10 minutes. Does that sound all right? Cool. All right. See you in a minute.
Okay. Oh, wow, that's interesting.